Me gustaría agradecer a la embajada, a la universidad y a todos los organizadores de este evento. Me encanta Madrid. Me siento también privilegiado de poder participar en esta discusión. Sin embargo, mi participación va a ser en inglés, debido a que mi español no es fluente todavía. Gracias por su paciencia. What do we mean by the phrase improving the efficiency of the office of the prosecutor? This must mean how to enhance the ability of the office of the prosecutor to achieve its mandate under the Rome Statute. The essential mandate of the office is to investigate the international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, and to prosecute their perpetrators effectively. And the purpose of effective prosecution is to contribute to prevention. This objective, which is shared by states and the International Criminal Court, is to end impunity for the perpetrators of such crimes. And we fight impunity in order to hold criminals to account for their actions, to bring a measure of justice to the victims and communities who have suffered from their crimes, and to strengthen the rule of law in the world. So how can the office of the prosecutor become more efficient? There is, of course, no substitute for plain hard work and dedication. Our staff, including investigators and prosecutors, work very hard, and they are achieving results. But what I would like to speak about now is the way in which we have organized ourselves to ensure that our hard work and dedication will produce positive outcomes. And this is a vast and complex topic, so I'm going to try to give it focus by touching briefly upon 5 areas of interest and to give you a look inside the Office of the Prosecutor and how we work. The 5 areas of interest are these: thinking about how we work, organizing how to work, training to do our work, recruiting the best for our tasks, and finally, securing cooperation. So let me start with thinking about how to work. The Rome Statute is our point of reference. We have to work within the parameters established by the statute. And the statute defines the court's jurisdiction, the crimes it must investigate and prosecute, the role of the organs of the court, including the prosecutor, the obligations of states parties to assist the court, and many other matters. Under the statute, the core activities of the Office of the Prosecutor are threefold. First, to conduct preliminary examinations of situations that might require the intervention of the court. Secondly, to investigate allegations that Rome Statute crimes have been or are being committed. And thirdly, to prosecute the accused perpetrators of such crimes. Now, we undertake these activities according to a strategic plan. And that strategic plan covers a 3-year cycle and sets the essential objectives for the office in that 3-year period. Our annual budget proposals are based upon the projected cost of our activities and relate to the achievement of the objectives identified by the strategic plan. So we have to plan our activities and ensure that we have sufficient resources to sustain them. And resource constraints have an impact on our planning and operations. In approaching our activities, we have tried to ensure transparency and consistency in our work by developing policies. Now, we train our staff as a function of these policies. They're not just words. We actually apply them in our work. And these policies include the preliminary examination policy paper, which explains how we apply Rome Statute criteria in assessing whether a reasonable basis exists to open an investigation and describes the preventive impact the office seeks to achieve. Another policy is the sexual and gender-based crimes policy, which serves to ensure that we pay sufficient attention to the dimension of sexual violence when we deal with allegations of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. We also have a policy on children, which places emphasis on the plight of children in relation to Rome Statute crimes and how we should treat children as victims and witnesses. There's been mention of the next policy I'm going to remark upon. It's the case selection and prioritization policy, which comes into play once an investigation is opened. And there are other policies as well. In other words, we force ourselves to think about how we work so that we apply our resources in an efficient and effective way with the aim of achieving our mandate under the Rome Statute. Let me say just something about preliminary examinations, because there's often confusion about that. Preliminary examinations are not investigations. They are an assessment of information to determine whether or not the office should become involved in a situation. And they play a vital gatekeeping function for the office by filtering out situations which do not come within our jurisdiction and focusing the prosecutor upon those situations where she might have to intervene. One aim we have is to make the Rome Statute system of international criminal justice work. This often means that we encourage national authorities to act, since states have the primary responsibility for investigating and prosecuting Rome Statute crimes. We term this positive complementarity, and this is a reference to the complementary jurisdictions of states and the court, and the need for states to assume their responsibilities. Only if states fail to act, either because they lack the capacity or because they're unwilling, can the International Criminal Court intervene as the court of last resort. We are also developing cooperative partnerships in relation to the investigation of certain situations in accordance with our strategic plan. While we have no budget or mandate for capacity building as such, we can share our experience and expertise to help others and work with others to achieve common goals under the Rome Statute. Now, we engage in thinking about how to work in many other ways too. For example, all of our investigations are the product of intensive and thorough investigative planning. At important stages in any investigation or prosecution, we employ critical thinking to test the cogency of our theories and the strength of our evidence. And we do this in what we call case reviews. And these involve reviewers who are members of our staff but not part of the team conducting the investigation or prosecution. So what I've described is a dynamic and continuing process which we hope contributes to the efficiency of our operations and our ability to achieve our objectives. So let me talk now about organizing for our work. The Office of the Prosecutor is organized to remove as much friction as possible between its moving parts, so that our resources are applied efficiently toward achieving our goals. And we've optimized our structures to ensure they serve our core operations in a productive way. In very broad terms, the prosecutor, with the assistance of her executive committee, takes the key decisions relating to prosecutorial discretion, the application of resources, and the strategic direction of the office. The three big divisions of the Office of the Prosecutor, which are first the Jurisdiction, Complementarity, and Cooperation Division, we call it the JCCD, and I'll refer to it as JCCD, the Investigations Division, and the Prosecution Division, supply the teams with their essential personnel and provide specialized support for the activities of the teams, as well as performing other functions. And finally, the teams, which are the integrated dynamic working units of the office, are led by senior trial lawyers and carry out the core investigative and prosecutorial activities of the office. Undertaking an investigation involves a complex interplay of factors. The team must understand the context and background of events. Specialized units must assist the team to assess security risks affecting members of the team and those, perhaps witnesses and others, with whom they will interact in relation to the situation. With the assistance of specialized sections within the office, the team plans operations. It will identify potential sources of evidence from a broad spectrum, digital, physical, and testimonial. It must secure cooperation from states parties, non-states parties, and other entities in order to carry out operations and collect evidence. In accordance with the provisions of the Rome Statute, the team must investigate to establish the truth. And it will conduct the hard, relentless work of gathering evidence and building upward from the crime base to establish linkages to suspects. As I mentioned, this process will involve critical thinking and a constant reevaluation of the evidence, our theories of liability, and investigation strategies. And when it comes time to bring charges, the office will have to develop arrest strategies, and I'll come back to this to underscore the importance of state cooperation. Our aim is to develop our cases so that we are as trial-ready as possible by the time of a suspect's first appearance before the court, and certainly by the time of the hearing before the pretrial chamber to confirm charges. And I believe this approach has contributed greatly to the efficiency with which pretrial chambers are able these days to conduct confirmation hearings, which usually take only 4 to 5 days now. The prosecution, of course, bears the burden of displacing the presumption of innocence enjoyed by the accused to the level of proof beyond reasonable doubt. And so we must bring cases that are thoroughly and fairly investigated and cogently presented in court. This is vitally important if we're to obtain positive results, having credibility, and serving to deter the commission of crimes. Now, there are other ways, too, that we strive to improve our efficiency, and I'll leave those just in the interests of time. We identify and manage risks, we encourage open communication and critical thinking, and all of this serves to help maintain motivation and high morale among staff. Let me come very briefly to training. The Office of the Prosecutor and the Court generally engage in regular staff training. Now, training has an essential integrative function in our work, since our staff members come from all over the world with different backgrounds and experience, and we must shape them into a common culture and way of operating. So there is always a need for continuing professional development in any institution, and that is true of the Office of the Prosecutor. Training also empowers staff by giving them confidence and equipping them to work effectively. And we've developed in-house training methods, including e-learning. So, for example, any investigator coming into the Office of the Prosecutor can follow a course online within the office to ensure that he or she handles evidence in a way that preserves its integrity and continuity. And we've recently been running an online program that is compulsory for all staff to teach cybersecurity. The standards we apply in our work have been set with the assistance of boards comprised of external experts in their fields, for example, the Scientific Advisory Board, which approved the forensic procedures we use in our investigations. I'll come now to recruiting. The most important resource any institution has is its staff, its people. We strive to recruit individuals who are highly motivated, who share our core values of dedication, integrity, and respect, and who have the skills and experience that will allow them to grow into their roles within the office. Diversity is our strength. Competence is essential. As one example, we have created a very strong core of senior trial lawyers who lead the integrated teams I was speaking about. And we've done this by recruiting from outside, but also from bringing up talent from inside. And ultimately, of course, our success will depend upon the last point I wish to make, and that is securing cooperation. The Rome Statute makes detailed provision for the support and cooperation states parties must provide to the court. Cooperation, however, is a dynamic process involving relationships and context which the Office of the Prosecutor can manage to a degree and even influence, but over which we ultimately have limited control. Cooperation depends in the end on the willingness of states parties and others to support the court and on the level of their commitment to international criminal justice. The level of support and cooperation we receive will affect our efficiency. If we investigate allegations of crime to the point of being as trial ready as possible, and if we obtain a warrant for the arrest of a suspect, this all does us very little good if the suspect remains a fugitive for years, at large and free from arrest. State cooperation is essential in the matter of arrests, but also in relation to many other aspects of our operations, from the collection of evidence to the protection of witnesses to the freezing of assets. In relation to cooperation, the Office relies very much upon its International Cooperation section, which is part of JCCD. However, our chief diplomat, I have to say, is the prosecutor herself. Fatou Bensouda has access to heads of state, and she uses this access to explain the ICC and to secure support for it. She's tireless in this regard, sometimes working quietly and effectively out of the public eye, sometimes making very public appearances. The members of the International Cooperation section use diplomacy to open the way to our ability to conduct operations in situation countries and elsewhere. And members of this section are also embedded in the integrated teams with the specific assignment to help facilitate international cooperation. International cooperation plans form part of our investigative planning respecting any situation. We have focal points within situation countries and within the administration of states parties, non-states parties, and other entities. One mechanism we use to obtain evidence is the request for assistance, or RFA, and we send focused and detailed RFAs to states parties and others to obtain evidence. And if we receive speedy and accurate responses, this enhances the efficiency with which we work. So certainly one way to improve the efficiency of the Office of the Prosecutor is to improve the efficiency with which our RFAs are fulfilled. And this again is a matter of cooperation. The Registry supports our operations in certain situation countries by operating field offices. And this helps to reduce cost of operations and provides valuable on-site support. And recently, we've begun to employ what we call situation-specific investigative assistants, who are local individuals with investigative skills and knowledge of the terrain. And we've done so very successfully, for example, in Uganda, where highly competent Ugandan law enforcement officials have been serving as situation-specific investigative assistants and have improved our evidence gathering. Cooperation obviously thus plays a major role in our ability to succeed. I cannot leave the topic of state party support without mentioning our need for sufficient resources. Proper resourcing is a major element in the ability of the Office of the Prosecutor to accomplish its mandate efficiently. We are at the moment under-resourced, and the financial constraints governments face have made it challenging for us to secure sufficient funding for what we need to do. So let me conclude by saying that those were the 5 areas I wish to speak about. The Office has made great strides to improve its efficiency and achieve positive results. Some of the failures I think we're putting behind us, and I've outlined a number of initiatives and practices that are designed to support our operations. It's an ongoing and dynamic process, and we'll always be striving to gain efficiencies in our operations. We can never do everything we want to do, What we can do, however, we have to do well. And this means investigating in an objective and impartial way to get at the truth and to bring cases to the court based upon solid evidence. As prosecutors, we must be solicitous of the welfare and security of victims and witnesses. We must respect the rights of the accused, and we must contribute to the work of the judges in ensuring fair and efficient trials. If we can hold perpetrators of terrible crimes to account for their actions, then we may hope to deter others. The International Criminal Court offers a fair, impartial, and efficient administration of international criminal justice, and I suggest to you that in today's world, this is in itself of great value. Thank you. Gracias.